Welcome to Rackham Games. I'm Skaven 1. We're gonna play more 5 leagues from the Borderlands. Our heroes right now are lost in the desert and they cannot find the secret city. So they're gonna go into a lair and find out what they can. It's gonna be an underground lair to find some clues for this lost city. Our band right now is composed of these individuals, including Hope, which is a hopeful warrior who turned out to be a necromancer. But since our Juvie follower just came back from injury, we're gonna let her go. And we're gonna use these 6 heroes, which are Titus the Barbarian, running the witch. We're gonna use Crow, the thief. Tortor, the Dustling, Grush, the Dwarf, and Juvie, who's gonna be one of our 2 followers with Dwarf. Since we are not in a city, we're gonna do a camp event, and it's gonna be the camp events table. And I got a 35, which is Wandering Healer. Select an injured character who can mark turn off their recovery time. But I have no injured character, so we can skip that one. Now we're gonna roll for the upkeep cost. And we have a 6. Wow, that is expensive. And that is gonna be 3 gold that we have to pay for upkeep. For the campaign activities, I'm gonna choose Live Off the Land, and I'm gonna waive this upkeep cost, so I don't have to pay 3 gold. For the second activity, we're gonna do Scout. So for the Scout activity, I have to make a 9+ scouting test. Now, Crow, our hero, has Scouting, so he has a +2 on the roll. We're gonna do 9 or more Scouting test. That will be a 7 or more on 2d6. And we got an 8, which is perfect. Now we don't have to make a travel roll when we get a location. Now we're gonna roll to see what is the contract source. And we get an 83, which is a local noble who's gonna give us these 6 + 2 gold marks if we complete the contract. Now, what kind of contract is it? It's gonna be a 73. Negotiate deal. So this is going to be our delve, which is a massive laboratory that was hidden underground under the desert. And our heroes are going to explore it. We are gonna roll for the lurking foes. And it's gonna be a 68. That will be cave runners. For the amount of cave runners, it's going to be 3 + 3. It's going to be 6 cave runners. Now let's find out if they have a leader. 33. And we have a sergeant. Our scout is going to roll for the first move. 38. Place undiscovered depth. Place 3 additional exploration markers on the table. Now we're gonna place the enemies on the random exploration markers. The enemies are going to be this Skaven. We have 2 groups of 3 runners and 1 leader. Now I'm gonna place the leader. There are 9 exploration tokens. The leader is going to go on token number 5, which is the one on the top, right there. The next group is going to be on token number 3, which is this one. And the last group, which includes 1 figure with slings, is going to go token number 8, which is right here. And the objective of this game is to clear at least 3 exploration markers. For this battle, in cramped conditions, all base movement rates are reduced by 1 inch, except for enemies with the crawling trait. Warband figures cannot dash. And also no range attacks can be made over a distance of 8 inches. Let's begin the battle. This is the initiative phase. And I have only 1 die with a 1, and the rest will go on the slow phase. I'm gonna assign this one to Titus. Titus opens the door and moves 5 inches to the objective, but cannot reach it. Now we're gonna roll for the unaware enemies and where they go. The leader goes to token number 3. And he's gonna move. The leader moves 7 inches to counter number 3. Group number 2. They're gonna move 7 inches to counter number 2, which is this one. They're gonna be placed here. And group number 3, 7. It's this one right here. Now the rest of the heroes will move. Now we roll for the second turn. Too bad. It's gonna be 1 for the mystic and the rest for the heroes. Running the mystic will try to cast a spell called Barrier. It goes off on a 6+, but he has +1 casting, so he needs a 5+, and he gets it. It's gonna put the barrier right here in order to prevent the enemies from going through that door. It is now the enemy's turn, and the enemies keep moving. He will move 7 inches. They will go into the door, this chamber right here. And this group will open the door, but they cannot go through the door. The enemy with the sling tries to fire the sling at Titus, which is the closest target. So the Goblin runner is gonna fire his sling at Titus. Titus is within 6 inches and in the open, so there's no cover there. So he's gonna roll a 3+. And he gets a 1 and he misses. Now for the rest of the heroes, Titus is gonna go here to the token. He's gonna try to find out what it is. And we're gonna roll on the Sights Find Exploration table. It's gonna be a 14. An obstacle. The obstacle stands 2 inches to every direction and counts as difficult terrain. Suddenly the wall collapses. And there is an obstacle right there. In order to clear the obstacle, they have to succeed an 8+ pack-wise test. Now the rest of the heroes will move. Some of the heroes will take cover while the other ones are ready to pounce. This is gonna move 5 inches. This is gonna go here. And these guys will take cover. Let's roll on the next initiative phase. Oh, bad dice. They all go in the slow phase, and the enemies go first. It is the enemy's turn. The spell goes away. The enemy with the sling tries to fire at Titus and succeeds. Now he has to beat the armor. Titus has an armor of 2 and he does not beat the armor. The rest of the enemies pounce on the heroes. This enemy will go here. The first runner tries to attack Tortor. Tortor has an a combat of 2, and the enemy has combat of 1. The red dice is the enemy, the white die is the hero. And the hero wins. In the second exchange, the hero fights aggressively. And Tortor beats the enemy. On the second exchange, Tortor fights furiously. He has +1 on either overcoming toughness or overcoming armor, but he's carrying a warhammer. The warhammer has +1 +0. The enemy has an armor of 2. The enemy has an armor of 2. And he has a warhammer. 6, he manages to beat the armor. Now he has to beat the toughness. He has a 3. Their toughness is 4. With the +1 for fighting furiously, he equals the toughness of the enemy and wounds him. And the enemy is done. The second enemy also charges Tortor. He fights. And Tortor has a +2 and beats the combat. On the second exchange, Tortor fights aggressively, but cannot beat the enemy. On the third exchange, the enemy has the initiative and beats Tortor. Let's see if he can beat Tortor's armor of 2. He does. Let's see if he can beat his toughness. Tortor has a toughness of 3. He does not. And they get separated 1 inch. The enemy leader continues his way to the counter number 3. And he moves 7 inches. And the other group of enemies, let's see where they move. To counter number 5. Oh, it's way over there. Let's go. Now it's the hero's turn. Let's see if Titus can clean and get away from the rubble. He does not. The dwarf will charge this enemy. First combat exchange, he will fight aggressively and he wins. He needs to beat the armor. And he gets a 2, fighting aggressively. I use the counter of +1 and he beats the armor. Let's see if he beats the toughness. And he does. The enemy is out. Tortor is going to charge this goblin. He fights aggressively. It is tied, however, the goblin has a +1 and he has a +2 in combat, so he beats the combat. Let's see if he can beat the armor. He does. Let's see if he can beat the toughness, and he does. The goblin is out for the count. The rest of the heroes will move. Crow opens this door. He moves 5. Juvie will try to support his fellows. And the Mystic will just move. For the enemy morale, I lost 3 enemies, and I will roll a d6. On a 1, on a 2, one of the enemies will leave the battle. And one of them runs away. Let's continue with the third turn. For initiative, I have a 1. I will use it on Tortor. For the next turn, Tortor moves 5 inches toward the next objective. It is now the enemy's turn. The leader reaches the marker. These boys continue their way north. For the rest of the heroes, they move forward. Let's see if Titus can make it out. No, he does not. He's half way out of the rubble. Crow is trying to reach the last marker unmolested. He moves 3 inches and then 2 inches. It is time for the next turn. Running the Mystic is the only one with agility of 2. The rest of the heroes will go in the slow phase. Running the Mystic will try to cast a spell called Barrier on a 5+. And he does. He's gonna place the barrier right here in order to prevent the leader from going out of the room. It is the enemy phase. Where will the leader go? To number 5. However, he moves, opens the door, and sees the barrier. He is now aware that the heroes are on the dungeon. The group of enemies in the north will keep going north. In the slow phase, Crow tries to reach the other marker. Titus will clear the rubble. Tor will reach the marker. Let's see what he finds. Let's find out what Tor finds on the exploration marker. 32. An item. Tor finds an item. Let's make a loot roll and see what he finds. 98. An enchanted item. This is amazing. Let's see what happens on the enchanted item table. And it is a 7. A weapon. Let's go to the enchanted weapon sub-table. 23. A finding knife. A finding knife may be used in melee normally. It may be thrown with a range of 9 +1/+0, returning to the wielder afterwards. The followers try to move and block the possible entry of the leader, enemy leader. We now roll for the initiative of the 4th turn. This is pretty good. I'm gonna say 1 for Tortor, 1 for the Mystic, and the rest will go in the slow phase. On the quick phase, the spell will disappear. However, the Mystic running tries to cast it again on a 5+. And he does not. He fails the casting. Tortor moves to the enemy leader and attack. No, he's too far. It is now the enemy's turn. The enemies on the north reach the marker, but this leader sees Tortor and charges. The sergeant is a crawling monster, but also has +1 toughness and parry. Let's resolve the combat. The enemy sergeant charges and loses the combat. On the second turn, on the second exchange, Tortor attacks aggressively. Ooh, he has +2 versus the enemy +1, and he wins the combat. Let's see if he can beat the enemy's armor. He does not. On the third exchange, Tortor fights aggressively again. It is a tie. So they are separated by 1 inch. On the slow phase, the followers try to reach the enemy but fail. They only move 4 inches. Titus moves 4 inches also. On this little maze, the crow finally reaches the marker. Let's roll and see what he finds. A 20. It is another obstacle. The ceiling crumbles and another obstacle falls from the ceiling. However, that is the third marker, so the heroes can now leave the dungeon. The heroes need to leave the dungeon, so they're gonna roll for initiative. I only roll 2, which works for the Mystic, and the rest of the team go in the slow phase. The Mystic only has 1 bottle left. He's gonna try to cast Barrier again on a 5+. And he does not. The enemy on the north will roll for the next marker. 1. They have to go all the way to the entrance of the dungeon, and they move 7 inches. Crow tries to clear the rubble using Pathwise on an 8 or more and fails. He's stuck. He only moves half his movement. So we have a big fight in the middle of the table, and the enemy is going to charge Tortor looking for revenge. He's gonna fight. Oh, and he misses the combat. On the second exchange, Tortor will fight aggressively. But he loses combat. Third exchange, it is the initiative of the sergeant. It is a tie, so they get separated again. Tortor charges into combat in the slow phase and fights aggressively. They both get 6s, but Tortor has a +2 versus combat 1 from the enemy, and he wins the combat. He tries to beat the armor. He has a 3 +1 from his Warhammer, and he beats the armor. Now the enemy has toughness of 4. He does not beat the toughness. Juvie, the reckless, also wants to charge the enemy. They got separated. and the enemy wins that combat. On the second exchange, the enemy wins the combat and tries to beat toughness of 3. Juvie has an armor of 1 and the enemy beats the armor. Juvie also has a toughness of 3 and he beats the toughness. Juvie is out of the battle. The dwarf wants revenge and charges the enemy. He fights aggressively. The enemy beats the dwarf by 1. The enemy tries to attack again. He beats the dwarf. Let's see if he can beat the armor of 1. And he does. Let's see if he can beat the toughness of 3. And he does not. On the third exchange, the dwarf beats the enemy. Let's see if he can beat the armor. He does. Toughness. And he does. And the enemy is out. Titus, which is the only one left, will start leaving the dungeon. At this point, the enemy is so far behind that there is no way that they can reach the heroes. So the heroes manage to escape the dungeon. Let's go to the resolution phase. We did not win any adventure points. So now we have to roll on the injury table for the follower. Let's roll. For Juvie, I got a 13. He is dead. I have 1 silver tree leaf left. So let's re-roll that. 85. He is only knocked out and he is available to fight on the next game. Now we're gonna roll on the loot table once. It's gonna be 85. Consumable. We roll for a consumable. We get a 15. A coil of rope. Finally, we're gonna roll on the news table. 88. A stranger is visiting. Select a random settlement. If you visit there within the next 2 campaign turns, roll a traveler encounter. If you want to help us make more videos, we have a Patreon. The link is in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.